So Alexander Usyk vacated his IBF title yesterday. Daniel Dubois has since been upgraded to full IBF heavyweight champion, and therefore Anthony Joshua decided to go ahead with the Daniel Dubois fight as a challenger. Now, some people are questioning the motives of Alexander Usyk because he made a video saying that this relinquishing of his IBF belt was a gift to Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua. Some people say that's disingenuous. Well, Alexander Usyk was appealing to the IBF to allow him to keep hold of that belt. And we don't know what the verdict of the IBF was. It was kind of radio silence from them. And we don't know what the verdict would have been. Were they going to strip him anyway? Your guess is as good as mine. What I will say, however, is if Usyk hadn't given up the belt right now, then there's a chance that AJ Dubois wouldn't be happening, because that's what Eddie Hearn indicated, that if the IBF belt wasn't on the line for this fight, Anthony Joshua will be going in a different direction. And therefore, you have to wonder whether the Saudis had some conversations behind the scenes with Alexander Usyk and said, look, why don't you drop this appeal regarding keeping your IBF belt? Maybe we'll compensate you in some other way, because we really want to announce AJ Dubois. We don't want AJ to fight Joseph Parker or Zhang or whatever. This is our preferred opponent for Anthony Joshua. So please give up that belt, give up that appeal, so we can quicken this process up and just get Daniel Dubois versus Anthony Joshua for the IBF heavyweight title. That seems possible to me, but again, I'm speculating. We don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes. In any event, the fight between AJ and Dubois is on. So I'm going to talk about the whole card first before doubling back to the main event. Now, obviously, you got the promoters hyping this fight card to a ridiculous extent, saying that it's the greatest card we've ever seen. I mean, they say this every single time now they do one of these Riyadh season events. It's the greatest card we've ever seen. Yes, these are very, very good cards, but let's not go overboard. Okay, greatest card we've ever seen? No, this is not even the best card that Riyadh season have put on thus far. All right, it's a good card, but it's not crazy good. Let's not get it twisted. So top of the bill, you got Daniel Dubois defending his newly captured, if you want to use that word, IBF heavyweight title against Anthony Joshua. On the undercard, you got Liam Smith versus Josh Kelly, Tyler Denny versus Hamza Sheeraz, Anthony Cacace against Josh Warrington, Joshua Buatsi against Willie Hutchinson, and Mark Chamberlain versus Josh Padley. So let's start from the bottom. Mark Chamberlain versus Josh Padley. Two unbeaten guys, 16-0, Chamberlain versus 14-0 Padley. To be honest with you, I haven't seen much of either guy. I'm not sure I've ever seen Josh Padley fight, actually. I've seen Mark Chamberlain fight. Not sure about Josh Padley, but that's a decent fight. It's no incredible, unmissable event on paper, but it's still a decent fight. Then we got Joshua Buatsi versus Willie Hutchinson, WBO interim light heavyweight title. Now that is a good fight. That's one I'm really looking forward to. It was interesting watching the face-off between the pair of them because it was a very, very long stare down. And the people who were standing with him, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, had to actually intervene to stop the stare down because it was going on for such a ridiculously long time. Now, Willie Hutchinson appears to be trying to kind of put it on Joshua Buatsi a little bit. He said in the press conference that Buatsi's no better than Craig Richards. And so he's expecting a similar type of fight to that one. And Buatsi said he wasn't bothered by that. But Ben Shalom, his promoter, reckons that Willie Hutchinson attempting to push Joshua Buatsi's buttons at the stare down and some of the stuff he said in the press conference is actually going to make it more dangerous for him and is going to play into Joshua Buatsi's hands because Joshua Buatsi can be kind of a laid-back, placid character. And again, Ben Shalom thinks if you fire him up, it takes him to a whole new level and he becomes far more dangerous. He becomes like the Joshua Buatsi of old. Well, I certainly hope so because that Joshua Buatsi was a really exciting fighter. The Joshua Buatsi we've seen over the past few years, not so much. So let's see if that holds any weight. Now, when this fight was initially announced, because I think it was yesterday or the day before I did a video about it, they said this fight was going to happen. It was signed. I've been leaning towards Willie Hutchinson. I'm still leaning towards Willie Hutchinson. However, Joshua Buatsi has one strength, which I didn't really talk about in that video, and that is his strength, his physical strength. He's a very, very strong light heavyweight. In fact, with the exception of Anthony Yarde, I want to say Joshua Buatsi, and he might be stronger than Anthony Yarde. I don't know. But Yarde is the only British light heavyweight who I think could compete in the physical strength department with Joshua Buatsi. He's very physically strong. And I think Willie Hutchinson will find out about that. I know they've sparred in the past, but in a real fight with the little gloves, I think Willie Hutchinson will find out that Joshua Buatsi is physically stronger than he is. Okay? And physical strength is something which doesn't often get talked about a lot in professional boxing. People talk about punching power, stamina, chin, so on and so forth. Skills, obviously. But very rarely do people talk about the physical strength of somebody and how impactful that can be on the way a fight turns out. It's something that's very underestimated. I mean, Lennox Lewis was a tremendously strong heavyweight, in terms of physical strength. And that's something that many of his opponents over the years used to remark on. Shannon Briggs being one of them. He said, look, Lewis had good punching power, but it was nothing out of this world. The thing that really got to me in the Lennox Lewis fight was his physical strength. I couldn't believe how strong he was. And that was something that many Lennox Lewis opponents said over the years. Even sparring partners would say that about Lennox Lewis, that he was so physically strong, that alone would wear you down, like in the clinches and what have you, because they just weren't used to being manhandled. Big guys in particular weren't used to being manhandled like that. It would wear you down. Now, I'm not saying Joshua Buatsi's on the level of a Lennox Lewis. Obviously, he's a light heavyweight. Lennox Lewis was a heavyweight. But, again, that physical strength can be something that takes opponents by surprise sometimes. I mean, you look at Dan Aziz. He's a physically strong guy. He is normally a pressure fighter, pushing the other guy back. Well, he wasn't pushing Joshua Buatsi back, was he? Joshua Buatsi was the guy on the front foot in that fight. Joshua Buatsi was the more physical of the two. So, yeah, that's something that Willie Hutchinson is going to have to, I think, prepare for mentally, being in there with a guy who, at least in my estimation, will be physically stronger than him. And perhaps will be the strongest light heavyweight, at least, he's faced so far as a professional. But in terms of recent form, the skills and all that, I like what I'm seeing from Willie Hutchinson of late. He's fast, he's accurate, he's ambidextrous at times, he's got decent punching power, and he's fluid with it. So I'm leaning towards Hutchinson, but that right there is probably my favorite fight on the undercard, at least on paper. Joshua Buatsi versus Willie Hutchinson. Then we move up to Anthony Cacace versus Josh Warrington. Obviously, Cacace just beat Joe Cordina in what some people saw as a major upset. He's taken on Josh Warrington, who's stepping up from featherweight. At the face-off, Warrington looked tiny next to Cacace. Okay, so I don't know about this one for Josh Warrington. I'm not writing him off, certainly not, but I would lean towards Cacace based on recent form and Josh Warrington being the smaller man. It's an interesting fight, but again, this isn't anything incredible. This isn't rivaling some of the matchups that were on those Don King cards back in the days, right? And I'm not knocking this card at all. I'm just putting it in perspective. I'm just being realistic about it because the promoters are obviously not. They're hyping it to high heaven. Anyway, next fight to talk about here, Tyler Denny versus Hamza Sheeraz. Now, this is a very quick turnaround for Tyler Denny because he just fought. Right? He just beat Felix Cash the past weekend. And so they've moved at breakneck speed, his promoter Ben Shalom that is, to get this fight over the line. Tyler Denny must be over the moon because, again, blue-collar fighter, wasn't really expected to do anything in professional boxing because he isn't the most naturally talented guy. And to go from where he's been to where he's at now, being on such a massive show, is a huge achievement for him. But he's going up against Hamza Sheeraz, who has quite impressed me over the past couple years. He's shown a lot of improvement. I thought he boxed very, very well against Ammo Williams. There's a polish about him. There's a confidence. There's a maturity in the ring about Hamza Sheeraz. You know, when a fighter reaches a certain level of experience, you see that they are very much in control of what they're doing. They don't look unsure of themselves. They go about their work in a very methodical and very, as I say, confident way. And that's what I see from Hamza Sheeraz. You can even see it in his eyes, that he has that confidence, that professional polish about his work and about his mindset. And that's exactly what Ammo Williams didn't have. It looked like man versus boy in there. Hamza Sheeraz versus Ammo Williams. Now, against Tyler Denny, Hamza Sheeraz will not be fighting a boy. Okay, Tyler Denny, again, not the most naturally gifted fighter in the world, but because of that, I have to imagine that he has been, subjected to a lot of rough rounds in the gym over the years. Perhaps being brought in as a sparring partner for more well-known, well-established fighters, prospects, people who are expected to go places. And those guys are not going to hold back when they bring in a guy like Tyler Denny to spar with, right? So the point I'm making here is he has the mental fortitude, the determination, the steeliness about him that Ammo Williams didn't have, at least in my estimation, because of where he's come from, because of what he's had to go through to get to where he is now. Yeah? When you are a naturally gifted, naturally talented fighter, sometimes your talent is like a barrier between you actually ever getting tested at the lower levels. Sometimes even in the amateurs, many times even in the gyms. So with a guy like Tyler Denny, he hasn't had that barrier. He hasn't had that cushion. He's had to get it out of the mud from day dot, do it the hard way from day dot. And therefore he comes with a different type of mentality, in my estimation, to someone like Ammo Williams. So I'm expecting Tyler Denny to be very game. I don't think he's going to freeze, because it looked to me that like Ammo Williams froze. Yeah, Tyler Denny ain't going to freeze. He's going to go for it. I don't make him favorite against Hamza Sheeraz at all. I expect Hamza Sheeraz to win this fight. But Tyler Denny might make it awkward at times because he does have this come forward southpaw style, offbeat rhythm. He can be a little difficult to time. He tucks up quite tight. So it's an intriguing fight, that one. Again, nothing incredible, but it's a decent fight. Hamza Sheeraz versus Tyler Denny. I expect Hamza Sheeraz to come through there. Then we've got kind of an odd one. Josh Kelly fighting Liam Smith. That's come right out of left field, as far as I'm concerned. Josh Kelly versus... So Josh Kelly, who previously fought at welterweight and light middleweight, is now stepping up to 160 pounds middleweight to take on Liam Smith. Bear in mind, Liam Smith was pretty much a career 154-pounder. Then he stepped up to fight Chris Eubank Jr. and what have you. So there's not going to be much in it in terms of size. If Liam Smith can channel his old self from a few years ago, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, then you'd imagine this is a very winnable fight for him against Josh Kelly. But if it's the same Liam Smith who turned up against Chris Eubank Jr. last time, or worse than that, then Josh Kelly might be able to take this one probably on points, because Josh Kelly is very mindful after losing to David Avanesian of running out of gas. He doesn't like to do too much. He likes to do just enough to get himself over the line. And so, yeah, if it's the same Liam Smith who fought Eubank or a worse version, then probably Josh Kelly on points. But if it's the old Liam Smith, if he can get himself back to what he used to be, Josh Kelly might be in trouble here. So it's an interesting one, if a little strange. And then we move on to the top of the bill, Daniel Dubois versus Anthony Joshua. Now, I've already made a video about this fight, talking about the styles, the attributes of both guys, and how I see it going. So I'm just going to reiterate a little bit here and add some things on. Now, I spoke previously about how if Daniel Dubois gets hit as often as he did against Filip Hrgović with Anthony Joshua, then it's a wrap. I don't personally see Daniel Dubois standing up to those type of shots from AJ. If he does, then AJ's in serious trouble as long as Daniel Dubois is not discouraged or spooked by the shots, right? So it's a matter of whether Dubois can stand up to AJ's very sharp punches early in the fight, not get discouraged, and continue to impose himself on Anthony Joshua. That's what the result of the fight hinges on, as far as I'm concerned. Okay? And my estimation is that Daniel Dubois won't be able to do that. Okay? Because I think AJ hits a lot harder than Filip Hrgović. I think he's got faster hand speed. He's very quick on the counter, very sharp with his power shots, Anthony Joshua, as we saw in his last couple fights. And Daniel Dubois hasn't been difficult to hit. With that being said, Anthony Joshua cannot take the kind of shots that Filip Hrgović took. No way. So it's kind of a situation that works both ways. Yeah, I don't think Dubois will be able to take the kind of shots from Anthony Joshua that he took from Hrgović, but I don't think AJ can take the kind of shots Hrgović took against Dubois. I think Hrgović, in fact, I want to say I know Hrgović, has got a much better chin than Anthony Joshua. From amateurs all the way through to the pro game, much better chin. You could say that Anthony Joshua's got a better defense than Hrgović, especially now. And you could certainly say that Anthony Joshua won't be as reckless early doors as Filip Hrgović was, because he threw the kitchen sink at Daniel Dubois, looking for the early knockout. It backfired in spectacular fashion because he had nothing left after, 3-4 rounds. So it's an intriguing one, but I go still, unless I say otherwise prior to the fight, with an Anthony Joshua victory, probably by knockout, around 8 or 9 rounds. And again, it's based on Dubois being a bit too hittable for my liking. And, Dubois is very aggressive, and that's a gift and a curse for him. He's got this ignorance of youth where he's willing to run red lights and he's not too concerned about the consequences. That allows him to put himself in the mix as far as landing big shots, right? You got to be in it to win it. How are you going to land big shots unless you're throwing big shots? Daniel Dubois likes to come out aggressive. But that aggression and that ignorance of youth also makes him vulnerable to counters, and Anthony Joshua is a very, very good and underrated counterpuncher. Has been for years. I remember in the first Ruiz fight, everybody was talking about how AJ's got no chin, he's got no stamina. After the fight, I'm talking about here. But what they weren't talking about is the first 2 rounds where Anthony Joshua at times was lighting Andy Ruiz up like a Christmas tree. Obviously in the 3rd round he dropped him as well, but in those first 2 rounds, the 2nd round in particular, Anthony Joshua landed some beautiful counters and lead left hooks that sent the spray flying from Andy Ruiz's head. And it seemed like nobody had seen that, because in the run-up to the rematch, I was seeing people turn up in my comment section talking about how Anthony Joshua can't box and Ruiz is a better boxer than AJ. And I was thinking, what brand of crack are these guys smoking? AJ was actually outboxing Ruiz in that fight until he got greedy after dropping him. So, yeah, AJ's very, very sharp with the power shots. And I'm thinking that Daniel Dubois is going to succumb to that. His aggression will give AJ opportunities to hit him with the kind of shots he hit Francis Ngannou with. And I certainly think that Daniel Dubois is a lot better than Francis Ngannou as a boxer. But ultimately, the fight will play out, I think, in similar fashion. I reckon AJ has to get Daniel Dubois under control early. Let's make no bones about that. If he doesn't get Daniel Dubois under control early, AJ's probably going to get knocked out himself. Okay, but if he can and does get him under control early by intimidating him, dropping him, hurting him, whatever, with the fast counters, the power shots, the jab, so on and so forth, then I think it will be a fairly straightforward fight for Anthony Joshua. I think the first few rounds are going to be really exciting, but AJ will get him under control after, let's say, 2 or 3, settle into a rhythm, gradually break him down, stop him around 8 or 9. That's the way I see the fight going down. Again, I'll talk more about it the closer we get to it. In fact, I'll probably do some film study on AJ Dubois on my Patreon page, where I'm actually looking at some videos, showing videos of their fights in slow motion, talking about some of the mistakes they both make, etc. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about this card in the comment section below. Wembley Stadium, Saturday the 21st of December, 2024. I think that the most keen observer of the main event here will be Tyson Fury. Yes, I think Tyson Fury will be looking at this main event very, very carefully indeed. Because if he sees enough chinks in the armor of the winner, particularly if the winner is Anthony Joshua, if he sees enough chinks in the armor, he might say, you know what? Let's forget about the Usyk rematch for now. Or maybe we can do a deal whereby I fight Anthony Joshua instead and the winner gets to fight Alexander Usyk. If they can put that into a contract, maybe I'll go that route. Because if AJ looks shaky but wins, I think Tyson Fury might see that as a more winnable fight than the Usyk rematch and a more lucrative fight where he'd get paid more than he would fighting Alexander Usyk again. So I would not at all be surprised if that happens. But again, it depends on how both guys perform, who wins ultimately. And Tyson Fury would have several excuses. See, the way that this situation has played out has made it possible now for Tyson Fury to divert and say, oh, well, you know, I don't want to fight Usyk next, not because I'm afraid of him, but because, well, they robbed me the first time. Obviously, I don't think that. Most of you guys don't think that, but this is what Tyson Fury is saying. They robbed me the first time, and therefore, I probably wouldn't get a decision anyway, so I need to get more of the fans on my side. And if I go and beat AJ first, then maybe that will happen, and, you know, I'll have some momentum politically and perhaps get a fair judge in an Usyk rematch. So we could say that. And he could also say, I wanted to fight for undisputed. This is the real big one, right? With Usyk vacating the IBF, it gives Tyson Fury the opportunity to say, well, I wanted to fight for undisputed, and now that it's no longer undisputed, what's the point in fighting Usyk? I'll go fight AJ first, pick up that belt, then I'll go see Alexander Usyk for undisputed round 2. So, yeah, I think Tyson Fury is going to be a very, very keen observer here, but we shall see what happens. I'm not predicting that is what's going to happen, that Tyson Fury will pull out of the Usyk fight, but it certainly would not surprise me. And the way things have played out makes it easier for him to do that. I'll leave it there. Let me know what you guys think about this card. Who do you think is going to win all these fights? Yeah, let me know in the comment section.
Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.